Hi, this is your instructor, Teresa Pelkie. Welcome to our class.
I am looking at tutorial 4, the example in the book, and I have put borders around the main containers. You see that the whole essential website is enclosed in a containing div tag. We have another div tag which contains the left-hand column and the right-hand column. The left-hand column contains the links. The right-hand column contains other content. Notice that the website is at a fixed width and that we have white space to the right of it. It is lined up against the left-hand side of the page. If I scroll down, we will see that we have a background graphic inside our second main div container, which gives us the illusion that our left column is the same height as the right column. Unfortunately, with CSS divs, there is no way to make columns equal without a little additional work. So let's take a look at some of the concepts that we will be learning in this class. We have so far looked at selectors, the element ID and group selectors. Today we will look at the next 5 types of selectors. A class selector is very similar to an ID, where we define the style based on the class attribute in the HTML tag. Rather than identifying it with a £, we identify it with a period. Now, a class can be defined as a general class, which can be called from any tag, or with respect to a specific tag, which means it will only apply to that tag. You don't see this format being used that often. You generally see a class that can be called from any tag. The beauty of a class is that we can use the expression class equals head many times in the same document, as opposed to an ID attribute. If we had an ID equals head, we can only use it once in that document. A contextual selector tells the browser to apply a style based on the context in which the elements or selectors exist. And this is a basic contextual selector, and we see a P tag and a B tag. This means that when the B tag is inside the P tag, the style will be applied. So the style is applied based on that context existing in the document. This is actually a very powerful way of applying a style, because you don't need to write additional code inside the element in the body tag. Here is an example of a context being applied to an ID section. This is very commonly used, and it is used in our tutorial 4 in the book. So for example, here inside my div with an ID of XYZ, I can apply specific styles to the UL tag, and these styles will only apply to this UL because of the context that it will only apply to the UL that is inside the div XYZ with an ID. Many different selector patterns can be devised. So here we see the context. We can have a context existing within a grouping. The asterisk indicates everything. It indicates that it applies to every element. The direct child context means that when B is a direct child of P, the sibling context means that when B is essentially a sibling of B. And these selector patterns are on the handout and in your text, and they will show you how this actually works a little bit better. So here we see the context P of B, meaning every B tag inside the P will have that style applied. The child selector means that only the first child descendants of P will have that style applied. The descendant selector means that only siblings of that selector will have that style applied. Attribute selectors are supported in most of the major browsers. They were not that well supported in the past. An attribute selector is based on the attribute of the HTML tag, and this is the syntax. For example, if we wanted to apply a style to any tag that had a title attribute, this is how we would apply it. So here we're using essentially any title attribute in any tag. We can apply a style to the element that contains that attribute. So the style is being applied to the element. Here we can apply a style, a specific or exact value. So anywhere, any tag that had the title attribute set to this value of school, the style would be applied. The tilde equals operator means that the style will be applied to the attribute that has a value that somehow matches this word. So any value that contains the word photo will have that style can be applied. The caret sign, caret equals, means that the style will be applied when the attribute value contains that selection as the beginning of the value. So here we see if the title were doggy or dogs, the word dog is contained in the beginning so that the style would be applied. The dollar sign equals is just the opposite. It matches the ending. So if the word dog was at the ending, it would match. The asterisk means that as long as it has the word dog in it, it will be applied. Now, you might not want to apply a style based on any attribute. You might want to apply a style based on a specific attribute to a specific tag. For example, the image tag. Based on the source value, we might want to apply a certain border. So attribute value selectors can be very powerful also. Here's an example of applying a style to the H2 tag who has a title attribute that is directly equal to school. Notice it will only apply in the first instance. So we can apply an attribute selector based on a specific element. Pseudo-classes. We looked at classes. A pseudo-class is a way to apply a style based on some classification of the element with respect to its status, position, or use in the document. The most common pseudo-class that we work with is the A tag, the link itself, the visited link, which actually turns a different color after you have visited it, the active link, which actually turns a different color at the split second that you click, the hover, which is the act of putting the cursor over the link. We also have a first child pseudo-class and a language pseudo-class and a focus pseudo-class. So here is an example of how the syntax of a pseudo-class. After the tag itself, the A tag specifically, it would be colon and then the name of the pseudo-class, as opposed to a period. So we can change the colors of the different aspects of the A tag. There are some rules. If you do change the color of all four of these states, they must go in a certain order. In our text, these links that we have been using, that we are looking at on the left-hand column, are laid out using the UL tag. Using the UL tag for navigation has been a standard in not only XHTML, but HTML5 coding. So here is the code that they are using. We see that their links are actually enclosed in the UL tag. Every A tag is situated inside an opening and closing LI tag. And we are applying the styles to our navigation based on the context being the ID of the div that encloses our UL tag. And this is a very common way that we work with coding out in the industry. It is very easy to put some content inside a div, give it an ID, and then based on that ID, write the styles for the elements inside. We also have pseudo-elements. For example, the first letter of a word, the first line, and we also have the before and after pseudo-element. An example of the first letter and the first line, where we can change the first letter and the first line, and this is demonstrated in the text.